preach to you today about the life of Isaac. And my sermon is actually called The Comfort of Isaac. And, we've been working through the Bible in terms of thinking about the new year, thinking about the end of the pandemic, thinking about the fact that life as it is cannot and will not last forever. And we've been talking about the need to be unstuck and move forward in faith. And so we talked about Abraham and how dysfunctional his family was. And we talked about, all the way from the garden, God has been on this mission to make order out of chaos. And we've been on a contrary mission to God, to make chaos out of order. You see, so this is an interesting scenario that's going on, and so God keeps reordering our chaos. But Isaac is an interesting spot in the narrative of Genesis. And Isaac is one of those guys that sometimes we a little bit skip over until, we just the only thing we really want to talk about Isaac is the issues, with his two sons, Jacob and Esau. But I want to rethink Isaac a little bit and how Isaac just sort of fits. Isaac is a character maybe we can identify with more than we have. So this is a word I would use to describe Isaac. Empty. I want to tell you why I would describe Isaac as empty. My whole sermon last time I preached, 2 weeks ago actually, was about how dysfunctional Abraham's household was. And the sermon was actually called, how to mess up your family. Well, guess what? Isaac is a member of that family. And one other thing about Abraham and Isaac that we should understand. And that's that you could put Abraham on the top 5 richest list of the Old Testament, wealthiest list of the Old Testament. I mean, he's not Solomon or David, but he's up there with Job. Okay? Kings meet with him. He pays tithe to Melchizedek. He is a wealthy, wealthy man. So what's that mean for Isaac? He is the heir of a wealthy, wealthy fortune. He comes from an extremely dysfunctional family, but he's not only the heir of this great fortune, he has all this extra pressure put on him as a kid growing up. Like he's the original PK. You know what a PK is, right? A preacher's kid, a pastor's kid, or a patriarch's kid. So Isaac is the patriarch's kid. He gets it, right? And like all the pressure's on him. He's going to inherit all this wealth. He's got all this fractured, broken family around him. And not only that, he's responsible for making sure he doesn't mess up and the Messiah doesn't get delayed. And so this is what he's growing up with. But he's also growing up like this. Another word to describe him. Incomplete. Isaac is a child who understands being incomplete. Isaac is a child that always growing up feels like something is missing. Isaac is the not only child, only child. You all heard of the only child syndrome. But Isaac is the not only child syndrome. So Isaac is 2 by my calculations when Ishmael is sent away. Isaac knows that he has a brother out there that he doesn't see anymore. Isaac remembers some emotional impact from that brother, and if he has vivid memories or not, the legend is there. His mom and dad still fight about it every night. Every time, Abraham's eye wander, mom's like, hey, we're not going back there again. So he grows up with the pressure of being a PK. He grows up with the pressure of immense wealth. He grows up with being responsible for the Messiah to come in, but he knows that part of him is missing. This will be replayed in his own children's life. He will pass this on. You know, how would you like your name to be a joke? I mean, like literally, this is the Isaac we're talking about. His name is a joke. I mean, there are many things they could have called Isaac. They could have called him Miracle. They could have called him Unexpected. They could have called Isaac, I don't know, Life. They literally chose to call Isaac a joke. I mean, it's enough that Sarah laughed at the tent when the Lord came and prophesied about Isaac, but literally then he's born and she's like, oh yeah, here's the joke kid. So he's living with being a patriarch. He's living with inheriting all this wealth. He's living with all the pressure of bringing the Messiah through his lineage and leading the nation that's going to come in the future. He's living with a sense of incompleteness, and he's living with that everyone laughs when they hear his name. He can't even walk into a room. People don't laugh about him. And now he's also living with the fact that his parents are always fighting. They're always on the verge of a family disaster because there's all this broken baggage in Abraham's family. And imagine living with this. His dad tried to kill him for reals. I'm just trying to help you focus on the things about Isaac that we just skip over. Oh yeah, we know the story. We have two Isaac sermons. The one where he's sacrificed and the one where he gives the birth offering away wrong. But I want us to see Isaac as a child. I want us to see the world through Isaac's eyes. When we talk about Isaac and the sacrifice and Abraham, we talk about the great faith, we talk about the angel, and we'll quote that verse, Dad, where's the lamb? Don't worry, son, the Lord will provide. Yeah, you try being an 8-year-old, or a 10-year-old, or a 12-year-old. He's a kid. Can you imagine what the walk down that mountain must have been like? There's no sermons on that. How did Dad and Isaac ever repair that relationship? Literally, how does Isaac go to sleep at night not wondering, is God going to think is Abraham going to think is Dad going to think that God wants me dead again? This is real trauma. This is happening to a child. And then as a young adult, his mom dies. His mom dies, and we don't talk about this either. He's kind of left alone. In a chapter, his dad's going to remarry. Remember I told you Abraham had 3 wives, right? Abraham's going to remarry. He's going to restart a whole other family, and Abraham's going to go off and be with that family.
Amen.
And now the fortune's with Isaac, and the pressure's with Isaac, and bringing the Messiah into the world is with Isaac, and he's alone. He's isolated. There's all these things going on around him. Isaac is in a circle. He's in the circle of isolation. Isaac of isolation. In this circle with all these chaotic, fun, vibrant, exciting, fortunate, unfortunate circumstances going on around him. But himself, he'd not been prepared for this moment. How could he be? Abraham was out there fighting for Lot, and where's Isaac? What's going on with Isaac? Where do we hear? Where's these great father-son moments with Isaac and Abraham? Hopefully on the way down that mountain. And it kind of reminds me of this, right? So we're all kind of Isaacs in a way. Maybe we don't have the same trauma. Maybe, we definitely don't have the same pressures of Isaac, but we're all Isaacs. And really, We're stuck inside a comfort zone. And here's the thing about comfort zones. They're comfortable. Like, I like to be in the comfort zone, right? It's like, it feels warm. It feels safe. It's very restricting. There are no comfort zones that are not restricting. There are no comfort zones that do not restrict your potential. Do you understand that, right? Every comfort zone restricts your potential. But they're safe. You're used to them. You well know where the boundaries are. You know? And we've kind of like been put into a comfort zone over the last year. I'm put into a real comfort zone. You know, it's frustrating to keep wearing these masks, and there have been people who have challenged the comfort zone, but comfort zones bring safety. But all comfort zones eventually come to an end. Like, me and Jose, we were talking about this coming to church. Like, one of our favorite things before pandemic was to go to the movies together. Amen. Like just thinking, like I'm a little bit more like inclined to the comfort zone than maybe some of you are. I don't know. But just thinking about going into a movie theater, as much as I want to, as much as it's like, this is our coming down the mountain moment. This is where we bond. We go to the movies, and then we go to Dave & Buster's, and that's our thing. You know? But just the thought of sitting in a seat that somebody else I don't know sat in just 20 minutes ago is not conducive to my comfort zone anymore. And I don't even know about, like Jose was telling about his favorite game at Dave & Buster's, the fake roller coaster, where you get on it and they put a video over you that makes you think you're on a roller coaster, and then they blow the air in you and shake your seat and you freak out. But like, my hands will have to touch those bars you hold on to. Like, comfort zones offer real safety, but then God comes and at some point shakes up the comfort zone, right? And so that's what happens in Isaac's life too, you know? And Rebekah is chosen to come into Isaac's life and to break his isolation. Rebekah is chosen to come into Isaac's life and to challenge him in new ways. Now, Abraham is very concerned because he doesn't want Isaac to marry a Canaanite. And this is not a racist thing. This is the fact that the Canaanites are worshiping different gods that Yahweh has warned them not to worship. And he wants to at least get someone who has a neutral background so, you know, they can follow Yahweh with Isaac. And that makes sense as you're making a nation that's going to follow Yahweh. And so, you know, Abraham says to his servant, go over to where I am from, and Nahor, and find a bride for Isaac. And the servant's like, I don't know how I'm going to find a bride for Isaac. And the servant's like, really, like, now the servant's feeling the stress, right? Because, you know, Abraham's eventually going to leave. He's going to go and he's going to have this other family. And everything's going to be put on Isaac now. And here's the thing. The servant's like, you know, originally Abraham was going to put this on me. Remember that, right? And the servant's like, I got to choose wise. So he prays to God and he says, listen, God, when I go to the well to draw water to drink, let there be a woman there. And I will know that she's the right woman. If she says, don't only just you drink, you know, we have enough water in this village. Let your donkeys, or your camels or donkeys, camels drink too, okay? And so that's what he does. And Rebekah's there. And he tells God, if she says, let the camels drink too, I will know that this is from you and not from me. Okay? And so in Genesis 24 and verse 15, it came to pass before he had finished speaking to this woman at the well, or this prayer, sorry, he's still speaking the prayer, I'm getting ahead of myself. It came to pass about before he had finished speaking, making this promise with God, behold, Rebekah who was born of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, and the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor, came out with her with a jar on her shoulders. The woman was very attractive in appearance. Now, it's interesting that it says that. And I think the reason it says that is it would be very tempting for the servant just to pick someone attractive. Right? Like, Abraham's going to be happy, Isaac's going to be happy. So this could create a situation where the servant may just pick the attractive girl, right? She was a maiden who no man had known. She went down and she filled her jar and she came up. And they had that conversation. What conversation? May I get a drink from your well? Yes, you may. Not only you, but also the camels who are with you. So she's not picked because she's attractive. She's picked despite being attractive. There are a lot of interesting sub-stories here. And so, the interesting things keep happening. This is going to be an arranged marriage, of course. There's going to have to be made a contract. This contract is going to have to be made between the servant of Abraham and also Rebekah's family, right? But what's so interesting is there's this repeated, subtle, feminist message in this story that is surprising, considering it's about the patriarchs. One, her beauty is noted, but that's not the reason she's chosen. She's chosen because God selected her. And two, they actually consult her. Like, this may be like, well, of course you would consult her. No, this is a time of arranged marriages where parents decide who marry each other, and women do not get a say in it, and men normally don't either. The families do. But in Rebekah's case, not only she is beautiful, but that's not the reason she's chosen. She also is consulted and gives her consent to this marriage. And they called to Rebekah and they said, here's the deal. This is what Abraham's servant is offering. Will you go with this man? And she said, I consent. She said, I choose. She said, I agree. And on surface value, this may just seem, nonchalant to us. But this is a massive cultural shift for that time and that place, which is a male-dominated culture. The age of the patriarchs. Patriarchs from the word father. The world of males. Consults her. And she chooses. And so they sent Rebekah with their sister. They sent away Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, or her servant, and Abraham's servant, and men, and they went. Now, Isaac is an interesting guy too, because remember I told you his issues. Isaac is like, all this is on my shoulders. I'm now of an age, he's a young adult. He's getting close to 30. He's not 30 yet. He's getting close to 30. He's thinking, this is the age in our culture where I have to take on responsibility and be a family man and lead my nation. And Dad's already like, there's a girl over here he's going to go over and marry here. And I can see where this is going. And so, this is what Isaac is doing. Isaac is actually out in the field, and he's actually praying. He's actually meditating. I don't know if he knows where Abraham sent the servant. I don't think he does by the subtext. But he is out in the field and he's pondering these things. And he's saying, what am I going to do? I don't know what happened to Ishmael. Mom is gone. She can't give me any guidance anymore. And also, like, I don't know what Dad's going to do. And all this fortune and all this stuff. And he's like, it literally says he's out there meditating. Right? And so Isaac went out to meditate in the field towards the evening. He's having his sunset worship out there. And he lifted up his eyes. And he saw, behold, there were camels coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes. And when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from the camel. Now, I know it's not quite Valentine's. I'm a little bit ahead of schedule, but this is how the Bible stories lay out. I can't help it. It would be nice if I could have delayed it for a couple of weeks. But the Bible stories lay out the way they do, and we're following faith forward with God's people. But if this was a romantic comedy or a romantic drama, like this is what they call in scripts the meet cute. You know that term? Like, it's called the meet cute. It's a technical term for film. For that genre of film. It's the moment where the man and woman first see each other and they play that sort of soft music in the background. And suddenly, like, the screen's a little bit brighter. Right? Your emotions and your heart and the cooing happens. There might be some awkward moment where someone trips or something, falls down a stairwell, depending on how much of a comedy it is. But this is the meet cute moment. Remember Isaac's problem. He's traumatized. We don't think enough about Isaac's life, but Isaac actually has one of the most traumatic lives in the Old Testament. I mean, there's Job, there's Isaac. I mean, Jacob makes his own mess. Joseph makes his own mess. Isaac, he wasn't doing anything. It's just like born at the wrong time. In the wrong birth in order. Ishmael got there before him, 14 years before him, and then they sent Ishmael away, and like, now Dad's looking at this girl over there that's possibly going to be, like, I'm just like, he's got middle child syndrome, and he's an only child. Like, that's messed up. He is in the chalked out circle, and he doesn't know how to get out of it. The servant comes down and tells Isaac all of the things that he had done. This is why I say I don't know that Isaac was in on this, like, go find Isaac a wife deal. Right? Because in arranged marriages, the man doesn't get any more say than the woman did. Now watch this, is interesting too. Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah, his mother, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. And he did what? He loved her. And Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. He loved her. Sometimes we think about arranged marriages as being like these like really repressive things, like it's so against our Western sensibility, right? It's interesting that arranged marriages have a much higher success rate than American romance marriages. Now, I'm not advocating you arrange your children's marriage. Please don't do that. This is America. There will be problems, maybe even lawsuits. I don't know. But all I'm trying to tell you is love comes from surprising places. And they have not known each other for more than an afternoon. But I don't know about you, but I believe that Moses was inspired when he wrote. And Moses says in that afternoon, This woman who he didn't know, watch this. This is why I say this is like totally a feminist story. This woman who he didn't know, he didn't consent to, consented to him and chose him. She could have said no. But it's actually, the man who's weak and the man who's hurting and the woman who rescues him. It's a meet cute that Hollywood should get on board with because it's the complete opposite of how we write these stories. The knight in shining armor is Rebecca. And she gives him the courage. She gives him the comfort. She is the one who breaks his isolation. She's the one who bears his children and forces him to grow up and deal with the reality that is thrust upon him. She's the one he looks to when he is isolated, when he remembers the trauma of his childhood. Now, it doesn't need to be romantic love, right? But this year has offered us all some trauma. And I mean that word in its literal sense. There is no way, I don't care who you are, there is no one who has not felt isolated this year. This past year, I guess I have to say now. There's no one that hasn't been impacted, and I would use the word trauma. And it just might be that we can't comfort ourselves out of it. It just might be that we need each other to break our isolation. I found this quote by this author, Jodi Picoult. She is a fiction writer. She's a novelist. She wrote a very famous novel, Sister's Keeper. And in this novel, there's this great quote. And I think this quote is really true if loners and introverts want to admit it or not. I mean, there are personality types, but I think what's in this quote is true. If you ever meet a loner, no matter what they tell you, it's not because they enjoy solitude. It's because they have tried to blend into the world before. And the world continued to disappoint them. Okay? No one helped them break their isolation. No one helped them come out of that isolation. No one coached them out of that circle. Now, the circle's very safe. We talked about the circle. We called it the bubble for a year. Remember that? What's your bubble? Now, the circle's not over. We got to keep the circle, but we got to start looking outside the circle at this stage too. And we got to start thinking that the circle is going to end at some point. And we've got to break the comfort of isolation. I don't know how much isolation you've been subjected to in your life. But I'm going to tell you the beginning of a story, and I'm not going to give you the ending till next week. But I will just tell you this. There is absolutely nothing more isolating that I have experienced than to walk through prison gates like this and to hear that door slam behind you and to hear it lock. At age 17 is the first time I ever walked through a prison hallway. and heard the door slam behind me and heard the door lock and knew I had to faith forward, move forward. No going back. I was thrust into a circle. And many more times, I would have that experience before I turned 20, 21. Many times. Each time. Let me tell you, each time. When you hear that prison bar door slam and the lock turn, there's almost silence and an echo, but then you can hear the people on the ward. And they're like, "Fresh blood!" It starts to echo all the way down the hallway. "Fresh blood!" I will tell you the rest of that story next week. Don't worry, it's probably not what you're thinking. But it could be, so come next week. But in a way, we've all been having that experience with COVID-19. In a way, we've all been feeling that isolated. In a way, we've all experienced that emptiness that you feel when that door slams. And here's the thing when that door slams. You're never going to be able to open it yourself. You hear me? You will never open that door when it slams yourself. You are at that point, if you're ever getting out of that hallway, depending on someone else to bring the key to open that door. So is true of the door of 2021 and faith forward. We're going to need to be that key. We're going to need to be that key that unlocks each other's circle. I don't mean in the way that Abraham and Isaac did necessarily. But what I do mean is there are some life circumstances that we're going to need help to get out of. And we're going to enter here in just a few months, maybe less, a time, when it's going to be like the warden came and unlocked everyone's door. Some people don't come out. We might have to help some people find the comfort of Isaac. We might have to help some people break the isolation of Isaac. We might have to help set other people free without being forceful. We might have to help prepare each other for the next stage of our life. Many of our lives have changed forever now. And we won't go back to what our lives were before the pandemic. We will go back to a completely new life. And that's really the secret of what Rebecca did. Rebecca did not let Isaac go back to his pre-Ishmael existence, to his Sarah existence, to his heir existence. Rebecca moved Isaac faith forward. Listen to the team and think about how you might need that help getting out of your bubble. Think about how you might help other people out of their bubble. The time is coming. It's time we start praying and thinking about that time. Listen to the team.
God. What God has for me, it is for me. What God has for me, it is for me. I know without a doubt that He will bring me out. What God has for me, it is for me. What God has? What God has for me, it is for me. What God has for me, it is for me. I know without a doubt that He will bring me out. What God has for me, it is for me. It is for me. It is for me. What God has for me, it is for me. I know without a doubt that He will bring me out. What God has for me, it is for me. It is for me. It is for me. It is for me. What God has for me, it is for me. I know without a doubt that He will bring me out. What God has for me, what God has for me, what God has for me, what God has for me. What God has for me, it is for me.